Hey, Soul Seekers. It is intuitive energy healer Kathy Weiss here. I am coming to you live from my reading room here on the central coast of California, and I have a bonus channeled message-ish situation for you today, all about Mercury retrograde. Like, what the heck is Mercury retrograde? How does it affect us? All kinds of cool stuff. And the energy that I'm hearing from you guys is that there are a lot of questions about this subject or others. There's just so much questioning energy going on. So if you do have a question or a comment and you're watching this live or later, shoot them down here and I will absolutely respond to you. Maybe we'll get some more channeled messages, some more information. I don't know. It's really going to all be in response to what your questions are. So here's what we're going to do around the topic of Mercury retrograde. Hey, Kayla, nice to see you. You're going to totally love this today. So we're going to talk about what is Mercury retrograde from an say that 3 times fast. Astronomical, the study and science of the planets and the stars, versus astrological, which is astrology I think of as how we look at our relationship to the planets and the stars and how we make meaning from them. So astronomy versus astrology. And it's going to be a story time because if you were watching or got a chance to watch the last bonus message about the full moon, I heard that I needed to tell you guys a story about Mercury retrograde, and I'm going to reference that video a few times today. So if you didn't get a chance to see it, I'll drop a link to it down in the comments afterwards so you can backtrack and watch that later. Okay, so first of all, let's talk about the science of what Mercury retrograde is. So in the heavens, all of the planets orbit the sun, and the Earth's orbit moves faster than the planet Mercury. So 3 to 4 times a year, what's happening is Earth is passing Mercury. And that creates the illusion that Mercury slows down, stops, and then begins to move backwards. But that is not the case. That's just an optical illusion. They're both still traveling forward. It's just that Earth has moved faster than Mercury, creating the illusion that it has slowed down and moved backward. And so we call that illusion retrograde. But in fact, both planets are still moving forward. As a matter of fact, all the planets are always moving forward in their rotation around the sun. So that's what's happening literally. And like I mentioned in the full moon bonus message, there is no science that supports that this movement of the planets affects us in our physical bodies or affects our reality. I also mentioned in that last video that everything that exists now and everything that we understand now was at some point disproved by science. So that doesn't mean that at some point in the future this may be discovered as something that does affect our physical reality in our bodies. So astrology, which is more of that way that we make meaning, sort of like oracle cards are used as an inspirational tool to help us make meaning, so is astrology. And in the astrology mythology, I have notes, you guys, just so I don't lose track. Mercury is considered the planet that rules communication, travel, and learning. So in astrology, when Mercury goes retrograde, what the information that is meant to inspire you says that during this time things will break down. Communication will break down, mechanical things will break down, like your car, your computer might crash, or your phone might randomly spaz out on you. Travel arrangements could go awry. Business deals could go south. You could end up in like crazy weird arguments with people. So all sort of break down in the area of communication and travel and technology. Okay, so again, referencing back to the last video about the full moon, reality is a construct of the human mind. And so it is your choice to believe or disbelieve that during the times of Mercury retrograde, that things are going to go to crap and all kinds of bad things are going to happen in your life, or not. And so what I'm hearing is now it's story time, because back in around 2012, I really had not heard of Mercury retrograde that much, and I didn't know what it was. And I ended up hanging around people who were like all about it. Like they knew when next Mercury retrograde was coming. They were like super prepared for it. They're like, I'm not going to make any major decisions in my life during Mercury retrograde or major purchases, and I'm not going to travel. And oh my God, here it comes. Bad stuff is going to happen. And sure enough, bad stuff would happen. And I was like, oh my God, I've never even heard of this. I better start paying attention. And what the heck? And during 2012, twice during Mercury retrogrades, I had a major car breakdown on the freeway in Los Angeles, close to 200 miles away from home, and had to have my car towed home while I'm sitting in the tow truck for like several hours back home. During Mercury retrograde. And so I was like, oh my God, this is like a real deal. My car broke down. It has not broken down ever since I've had it. And it broke down twice during Mercury retrograde. Oh my God. And so I started talking about it and telling people about it and being all about Mercury retrograde and being prepared and like knowing when the next one was coming, like all of that stuff. But also at the same time, I was learning about law of attraction, and I had been introduced to Abraham Hicks at that exact same time. And I didn't know anything about Abraham Hicks or law of attraction. And what the law of attraction says is that the energy and vibration that you put out is what returns back to you. So you can, by deliberately controlling your feelings and your emotions and your beliefs, begin to attract experiences into your life that match. And so we also do this not deliberately or by accident. So we have a thought or a feeling or a vibration, we're putting that out into the world. It comes back, whether you're doing it deliberately or not. So here I am, freaking out about Mercury retrograde and having major car breakdowns and needing to get towed back home. And so I got really curious and I started paying attention to the people who were like, oh crap, here comes Mercury retrograde. And they were really loud about it and always talking about it. And sure enough, for all those people, things would be difficult for them during Mercury retrograde. But then I also knew people who weren't like that. And I would watch them, and things weren't going south for them during Mercury retrograde. So I decided for myself that that does not affect me, that it is a way of making meaning in my life, and it may be a way of taking pause and observing my reactions to my life when maybe sometimes I get caught up and forget to do that. But I no longer gave Mercury retrograde the external power. I started to take internal power and decide that nothing was going to go wrong for me, or if it was just because it was, right? And sure enough, when Mercury retrogrades would come, number one, I didn't even know when they were coming anymore, and I still didn't know about this one until I looked into the full moon stuff, and it was like, oh, full moon, Mercury retrograde, blah, blah, you know. So now I find that big bad things don't necessarily happen during Mercury retrograde, and sometimes they do, and that they are not related. And so it's so funny because today I was driving Agnes to go for her walk at the park, and my car randomly stopped, like the engine shut down, everything, just like randomly. I started it back up and we were fine. But my car also acted up about 3 or 4 months ago during a time that was not Mercury retrograde. You know what I mean? So I do not ascribe that my car randomly shutting down was because of Mercury retrograde. So you get to decide, though, if it has meaning for you or not, right? Because reality is a construct of your mind. The things that you attract into your life experience are a direct result of the way that you feel, the way that you think, and the way that you believe. So, what about those of us who are really sensitive to energy, such as myself? As an intuitive, I am highly, highly sensitive to energy. And I've taken a lot of time to learn what it is I'm sensitive to. So if you're someone who is empathic or clairvoyant or highly sensitive in some way, I would encourage you to start to ask yourself, what is it I'm sensitive to? Am I sensitive to the movement of the planets? Or am I sensitive to the people around me? Because if we go back to that story I just told and the experiences I had when I was deeply believing the effects of Mercury retrograde, I was being highly sensitive to this group of people that I was surrounded with who were all about believing Mercury retrograde and its potentially negative effects in our lives. And as I have distanced myself from them, I am no longer as sensitive, not just like physically distanced, but just more like mentally distanced myself from that sort of reaction and that sort of meaning making. Okay, and it doesn't put any less value on those people's lives and experiences. I'm merely showing or telling you this as an example of what a sensitive person can potentially be reacting to, and you may not be reacting to the planets, you might be reacting to the information and the people around you if you are a highly sensitive person in some way. So, part of today's message is for you to get really interested in what it is that you're responding to. Okay. And now, if you're new to some sort of this type of awareness or mindfulness, then phases like Mercury retrograde and full moons or new moons can just be a good sort of trigger for you to sit down and ask those questions. So rather than the locus of control being outside of you and saying it's all the planets are doing this, it's this and that, maybe those are just really good times for you to sit down and make meaning in your life and for you to really take that inward pause and see what it is that you're feeling, what it is you're thinking, what are you deliberately creating in your life. And the more that you can be deliberate, then the less you need those external events to remind you. The less you need to go, oh, it's Mercury retrograde, I should be really wise in my communication. You start to realize you should be really wise in your communication all the time. Or it's Mercury retrograde, I better go get my car in for maintenance. You just start to realize, like, I should take care of my car maintenance when it's time. And so you can start to use those external symbols as a way to cultivate deep internal responsibility for your life. So there is a deliberate creation happening from the inside out rather than a reactionary creation happening from the outside in. Boom! That was the big piece of information, you guys, right there. So let me take pause and listen and hear if there's anything else that needs to come forward today. The act of deliberate creation is yours or not. Choose wisely and watch the results arise in ways that are both miraculous and mundane. Yeah, don't ever get fooled that the mundane stuff isn't a response to your deliberate creation, because there are both mundane and miraculous manifestations lining up for you all the time. It is simply, again, developing purposefully the internal locus of control versus the external reactionary control aspect of your experience. The other thing I'm hearing, and I'm just reiterating this from the top of the video for those of you that tuned in maybe halfway through or something like that, I am hearing the energy of a lot of questions, not only around Mercury retrograde, but just like a whole bunch of questions about life and manifestation and creation, and even like whether or not Kathy, myself, is like the real deal. Am I actually channeling, or am I legit, or whatever is going on. And so, like, feel free to add those questions or comments here. Private message me. Oh my gosh, after this Monday messages, I got so many private messages about the meditation that I mentioned that it was like crazy town. So I am going to figure out a way to get that meditation to everyone as well. It might just take me a little bit of time to decide how that's going to get delivered to you, but it will at some point. Okay, I just heard that this message is complete and that there is a great vast amount of love and support and guidance here for you. And all you have to do is ask the questions and the answers will flow forward to you. So thank you so much for tuning in, whether you watched live or you watched this later. I will be back next Monday for another free live intuitive reading. And you guys are awesome. If you missed the beginning of the video, go back and watch it now because there's so much good stuff dropped down today. And hey, if you want a customized personal intuitive energy reading and healing session, you can save 20% off your first one by visiting Kathy-Weiss.com and clicking on the Save 20% Now button. Okay, you guys, I love you so much. Have a beautiful rest of your day, and I will see you next time. Namaste.